address them to you. Okay. So what is qualitative research, or what do you think qualitative research is? Or what is research? How many of you know what research is? Okay. Social research refers to systematic study of behaviors and relationships of individuals and societies, and is often used to identify and describe regularly occurring social patterns in social life, right? So usually communication research caters to social research, right? All of you know that, right? Yeah. So social research, it refers to, it is a systematic study of behaviors and relationship of individuals and societies, and is often used to identify and describe regularly occurring social patterns in social life, right? So these are the different things that that happens in that a communication scholar usually looks at. Okay, he or she tries to identify and describe the on occurring or ongoing problems in the society, and looks how it is affecting the individual or a person. It can be two people, or it can be the problem and the person, or it can be the policy and the person. It can be anything, but it can be a social problem, or it can also be, it is a relationship. Okay, it is a relationship of individuals and societies, and it is used to identify and describe regularly occurring social patterns. So based on the nature of your research, what kind of research you are doing, what is the topic you have selected, you can broadly classify it either into quantitative or qualitative. Okay, quantitative is usually something with numbers, and qualitative is usually theoretical. Okay, you understand the quality of the research, you understand the kind of quality it is giving you. Quantitative is always a number of the sample or the data that you get to understand your research. Qualitative research is a collection of an analysis of non-numerical data. Okay, it has no numbers involved in it. Qualitative research has no numbers involved in it, such as text, video, audio, to provide deeper understanding of concepts. So when you do a research is done to understand or to bring a solution to a problem. You try to dig to find out, you investigate, okay, a certain problem. So if you are using, while doing your research, if you are using qualitative research, it is you don't find numbers in it. It has no numerical pattern in it. It is non-numerical, such as you might be reading a paper, or you might be reading you might seeing a video or a text or an audio to understand the concepts, perspectives, opinions, or experience related to your research topic. It may be used to get in-depth information and insights about a subject, as well as to generate new research ideas. Okay, so what does it do? Qualitative research, it helps you to get in-depth information and insights about your subject, as well as to generate new research ideas. Okay. So in this theory, qualitative research is the inverse of quantitative research, which includes a collection and study of numerical data for statistical analysis. So quantitative data is a quantitative analysis, or quantitative research methodology is quite opposite to qualitative. Okay, so in quantitative, you have numbers, you have collection of data, and you have a numerical data, a data that is in numbers, so that you can test it statistically. Okay, but in qualitative, it is only your texts, your readings that help you to do your research better. Okay, so so the purpose of qualitative research, approaches to qualitative research, data analysis, and qualitative research, and advantages is something that we are going to read in this unit. Now, what is the definition of qualitative research? So a very long term definition. Like in the past, we used to, what we used to say is qualitative or sometimes ethnographic or interpretative research. We used to use the words ethnographic, interpretative, or different varieties to qualitative research. Okay. However, the following the definitions that I am going to give you now are going to give you the meaning or define the word qualitative research much better. So Shank in 2002 defines qualitative research as a form of systematic empirical inquiry into meaning. Okay. So it is an empirical inquiry. You are trying to inquire what with evidence, what is it? What is it that, what is it that goes into the research? Yeah. So why does he mean systematic? Why is research systematic? Because it is scientific. It has to follow a process. It has to follow a procedure, right? It is planned and it is executed with different steps. Unless and until you have your research that is processed, you cannot get the desirable results or the results that ought to be expected. All right. So by systematic, he means, when he says systematic, what Shank means is that it is planned, ordered, and public, following rules agreed upon by members of qualitative research community. So when you are doing a qualitative research, or if you are doing any kind of research, be rest assured that anyone else can always... There is someone who's talking. Any doubt? Excuse me. Yeah, much better. So so when you are doing research, always be rest assured that there can always be someone who would want to understand what is the research that you are doing, or try to build upon the research that you have done. Okay. So according to Lincoln and Denson, okay, what they say is qualitative research is a multi-method in focus, involving an interpretative naturalistic approach to its subject matter. Okay. What is it? It is a multi-method. You have different methods in focus, in trying to focus, involving interpretative naturalistic approach to its subject matter. Okay. So it can be interpretative, you can interpretate, and it also has a naturalistic approach to the subject matter, which means that qualitative researchers study things in their natural settings. Okay. So when you are doing naturalistic approach, that means that you can do it in natural settings, attempting to make sense of or interpret the phenomena in terms of the meaning people bring to them. Qualitative research involves study, use of collection of a variety of empirical materials. So there's a lot of data that you have to read through. There's a lot of materials that you have to read to have a qualitative research valid. Okay. And you can also have case studies, personal experiences, introspective life stories, interviews, observational method, historical, interactional, and visual text that fall under your collection of material for qualitative research. And this describes the routine and problematic moments and meaning in individuals in life. So there is one more person called Philip Sain H. and Vironji Dasen, who defined qualitative research as a study of the nature of phenomena, including their quality, different manifestations, the context in which they appear, or their perspectives from which they can be perceived. Okay, but excluding their range, frequency, and people in the objectivity determined chain of cause and effect. Okay, so what does this person have to say? This person says that it is a study of the nature of phenomena that includes the quality, different manifestations in the context which they appear, or the perspectives from which they can be perceived. Okay, if you are perceiving something, it can be wrong. What the data says, what the materials give you, what the interviews give you, when you manifest all them in the context of which they appear or the perspectives from which they can be perceived, excluding their range, when you exclude their range, frequency, and place in an objectively determined chain of cause and effect. And there's one more person, Aspers and Court, who defines qualitative research as an iterative process which improved understanding to the scientific community is achieved by making new significant distinctions resulting from getting closer to the phenomena studied. So when you are getting more closer to the phenomena that has been studied, you are trying to research and build your research more on what has been studied and to understand the scientific community that is achieved by making new significant distinctions. So now let us understand the definitions more. So qualitative research follows a humanistic or idealistic approach. This is something that you have to understand. It follows a humanistic or idealistic approach. Okay, though the quantitative approach is more dependable since it is based on numbers and procedures that can be developed objectively and shared with other academics. Okay, so though quantitative research methodology can be more valid because of the numbers, but is based on numbers, that it can be developed objectively and shared with. So when you are doing qualitative research, it can be shared, with different academicians and take suggestions as to what they have to say. Secondly, the qualitative technique is used to gain better understanding of what people think, their experiences, their beliefs, their attitudes, their behavior, their interactions. Right? It produces non-numerical data. The use of qualitative research into involvement studies is a research method that is gaining popularity across disciplines. At the end, the authors essentially claim that the qualitative research is defined by iterative process. It is an iterative process, an endeavor to generate new differences, the ability to get closer to people and their context. So only in qualitative data, you have the scope of meeting people, wanting to understand them more. What is it? First-hand information gaining. Okay, all this is possible in qualitative research. So what is the purpose of qualitative research? Now we've understood what qualitative research is, what actually goes through a qualitative research, what is the process of qualitative research. But let us understand the purpose of qualitative research. It is needless to say, that any research fundamentally is carried out either to explore or to describe or to explain the phenomena, natural or social. Okay, so what does this kind of a research do? It helps us to explore, describe, and explain the phenomena. What does it do? It helps us to explore, describe, or explain the phenomena, whether it is natural or social. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So, all the exploratory researchers are very brand new, means no study has so far been conducted in that particular area or topic of research. Therefore, exploratory researchers start with research questions, while descriptive and experimental research begin with at least one hypothesis or more. Researchers must adopt to the qualitative methodology to address the to address the already framed research. So qualitative research is usually used when there has already been research done and you're trying to build more onto that research. It is the main purpose of using qualitative research is to uncover the meaning that informs the actions or the outcomes that explain or describe the research normally. Okay, so qualitative researchers are looking into the meanings. Excuse me. They are looking into the meanings, interpretations. One second. Yeah. So qualitative research is intended. It helps us to understand the meaning, the interpretation. Excuse me. Interpretation, meaning, symbols, as well as processes and relationships of social life. Okay, so this is why we use qualitative research. What does it do? It helps us to find the meaning, interpretations, symbols that are used, as well as processes. Excuse me. Processes and relationships of social life. Okay, so now we talk about this sort. What does this research generate? This kind of a research, okay, qualitative research usually is descriptive in data. Okay, it doesn't have any numerical values, but is very descriptive. With the researcher must evaluate using rigorous and systematic procedures for transcribing, coding, and then do theme analysis. So here, see, if you're doing qualitative, it is very easy for you to statistically prove your data. But in qualitative, it becomes difficult for you to prove your data, right? So what does the researcher do? He or she tries to very rigorously, it's a very Herculean task. Okay, so what do? They transcribe the data, they code the data, trend and theme and do theme analysis to get the valid data to prove the conclusion. Okay, so because qualitative research focuses on everyday's life and people's experience, it lends itself well to developing new ideas using indicative technique, which can be evaluated with more study. So qualitative research, what is qualitative research? So what do we understand qualitative research to be? It is a process of naturalistic inquiry that seeks in-depth understanding of social phenomena within their natural setting. So it is a naturalistic approach, a humanistic approach that you use. It focuses on the why rather than what. So you keep asking why this, why that, not what. It focuses more on why, not what, okay, of social phenomena and relies on the direct experiences on humans. So you directly connect with them, you understand their problem, you understand what they're trying to say, and then you come up with that research, with that data. Okay, so this is what qualitative research defines to be. Now we talk about the importance of qualitative research. Okay, so qualitative research is aimed at getting a deep understanding of specific phenomena. Okay, what does it help in? It helps us to understand a specific phenomena or event rather than a surface description or large sample of a population. Okay, it gives you a small population. You go, you try to understand, deeply understand what the problem is, and then you try to get that sample. Okay, it does not it is not like you go to a place, get large sample, go to that population, get that data and come. No, it aims to provide explicit rendering of the structure of order, broad patterns found among group participants. Okay, qualitative research does not deal with treatments or manipulative variables. It does not have, you do not need to treat the data. You do not need to test the data. You do not need to manipulate variables, and does not bring the researcher's operational definitions of variables to the study. Instead, what does it do? It allows the meaning to emerge from the participants. Thereby, it is more adaptable. It can adjust to the research settings and the environment. You don't need a laboratory to do your thing, right? You can go to any place. You can sit with them. You can talk. You don't need to have natural settings, environmental settings. And you can go to that place and get that data. As the research evolves, concepts, data gathering, instruments, and data collection methodologies can be modified. Now, mostly qualitative researchers use observations as one of the widely used methods of data collection. Observation is the selection and recording of behaviors of people in their environment. So what do they do? What is the first method that they use in qualitative research? It is observation. Okay. What is observation? It is the selection. You keep observing, you keep looking at things, you keep wanting to know their behaviors. You study their behavior by looking at them. Okay. It is a selection and recording of behaviors of people in their environment, in whichever natural setting they are in, and something that is related to the topic that they have chosen or you have chosen. Okay. Observation is useful for generating in-depth descriptions of phenomena or events, for obtaining information that is otherwise inaccessible, and for conducting research when other methods are inadequate. Sociologists, psychologists, anthropologists, and program evaluators extensively use observation as a primary method. Most of the people from different social sciences, they use observations as a primary method because they tend to understand more than the data that is there on hand. It is this observation that helps them to understand their research topic more better. Okay, the context or background of behavior is included in observation of both people and their environment. It can also be employed with inarticulate subjects such as youngsters or anyone who are hesitant to express themselves. Thus, qualitative research is very important for behavioral scientists to dwell deeper and to tap major cornerstones on how people behave in a giving settings. So usually psychologists or communication strategists or scholars who deal with behavior focus more on the method of observation. It is not the data that will give them accurate results, but it is your first-hand information that you see, that you witness, will give you that information that you require. Okay, so now we'll talk about the approaches to qualitative research. Okay, so qualitative research is typically conducted to better understand how people perceive, to understand what people understand. Okay, because human existence and experience are so dynamic and vivid, there are several methods to qualitative research. Okay, so different person has his own different behavior. Different people have their own different experiences. Okay, so it is very dynamic and vivid for us to understand, right? So there are several methods. That we use in qualitative research. They are often flexible and focus on keeping rich meaning when analyzing data. Okay, so so when you do qualitative data, qualitative research, it is more flexible. Okay, and you can focus on keeping the meaning and analysis, the meaning while analyzing the data. So when you are doing the data, you can keep the reason behind why you are doing this data. So the common approaches included during this research method is grounded theory, ethnography, action research. Then you have phenomenological research. narrative research. Okay, so what are the different approaches that you use? What are they? One is grounded theory, one is ethnography, one is action research, one is phenomenological research, and the other is narrative research, right? So these these are the usual approaches that are followed when you do qualitative research. Okay, when you follow qualitative analysis. So what is grounded theory? These studies gather rich data on a topic of interest by utilizing different methods in order to develop theories inductively. Okay, so grounded as in base. Okay, they ground, researchers ground, go into the deeper levels to get the best data possible. Okay, to get the best method or the best qualitative study possible of interest to the topic, that by utilizing different methods, they might use different methods to develop theories inductively. Okay, then when you talk about ethnography, this study entice scholars to immerse themselves into groups or organizations in order to gain better knowledge of their particular cultures. So ethnography is usually used to understand different cultures. So they use they get into a group or they get into different organization settings, or to understand one culture, they deep dive, with all their possible measures to understand what their particular culture talks about. Then we talk about action research. So these studies enable researchers and participants to put policy into action. Okay, so they bring a policy and they try to see how to put it into action, from theoretical premise to practical application. So it might be a theory, but how do they apply it practically is something that they look into. Okay, to increase efficiency and effectiveness. So, for example, if there is a policy laid by the government, okay, which is still lying as a theoretical theory, all right. So what these action research scholars do is they go bring that theory and they try to apply it, okay, so that it is used for the benefit of the people. Okay, then phenomenological research. These studies facilitate researchers to explore and investigate a phenomena. Remember, phenomenon in phenomenological research, it is the phenomena that is investigated, or an event or something, okay, that has been investigated by describing and interpreting the everyday life and experience of individuals. Okay. For example, if you can talk about at this time, why are people watching soap operas? Okay, so it is a phenomena, it is an event, right? Watching television, watching soap operas is an event. So what is going in through that process is something that phenomenological research studies. Then we talk about narrative research. These studies allow researchers to examine and analyze how tales are narrated. Okay, they try to understand how tales are narrated in order to offer better understanding that how individuals perceive, interpret their experiences, and how they make sense to narratives. Okay, of how they understand. The first thing is how they understand, how they interpret it, and then interpret their experience, and how they make sense, how they view the narratives is something that narrative research talks about. Okay, so are we clear with the approaches or any doubts? Are we clear?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So now we'll go into the data collection and analysis in qualitative research. Okay, so the data of any qualitative kind, such as text, voice, pictures, behaviors, gestures, and so on, generally be obtained by using research methods and are organized in sequential order for systematic analysis. Okay, qualitative research allows us to obtain non-numerical data while simultaneously investigating how decisions are made and presenting us with comprehensive information. Okay, so Qualitative data has nothing to do with numbers, but at the same time, we investigate into how decisions are made and presenting us with comprehensive information, which is more tedious. Okay, data, maybe if we just have numerical data, we can put it into the system and get the statistical interpretation of the data. But when we come to the qualitative approach, we don't have data, which makes it more competent for us to find the analysis of the data. And it is more extensive, rich, and complicated. Okay. So in general, observations, case studies, focus group discussions, ethnography, methodology, content analysis, narrative analysis, participatory methods, deconstruction, discourse analysis, textual analysis, and so on are accessible for data collection and quality research. So when you are doing quality research, these things are very important. You need to look at case studies, you need to look at focus group discussions, ethnography, ethnomethodology, content analysis, narrative analysis, participatory methods, deconstruction, discourse analysis, then you have textual analysis and all the other qualitative material that is available for qualitative research. The researchers decode their interview transcripts, survey responses, field notes on recordings for manual settings for analysis depending on contextual order of the aim or research question utilizing any of the aforementioned approaches. Okay, so they decode. So if they've gone and they got their recordings, they try to decode it by listening to it and trying to interpret it into the desirable, into the outcome that has to be, into the data that has to be looked into. Although there is no fixed form for qualitative data analysis model, most of its analysis contain similar of the following 5 steps. Okay, there are five steps that go into qualitative. One is preparation and organization of the data. Okay. Then there is review of data. Then there is data coding. And then there is recoding or assigning codes to the data. And the 5th is interpretation of the recurring themes. Okay. So what do you do in preparation and organization of the data? The information gathered during the field work should be written up as field notes and transcribed either manually or by computerization for the next phases. So when you are going to a place to get your data, to a field trip, okay, it should be written up as field notes and it should be transcribed either manually or you have to computerize it, okay, for the next phases, like for it to become more easy. Next, what you do is you review the data. The transcribed information, you have transcribed the information. So you have got the recorded information and you have written it down. You have transcribed the information. Now you take this transcribed information and it has to be evaluated. Okay, it has to be evaluated to avoid any repeated notes. Okay, if there is any repeated notes, you have to avoid, and only new ideas to be taken into consideration for further investigation. If you find any new information related to your topic, you have to take that and investigate it further. Next, what you do is you data code. So now when you have the bunch of new ideas, what you do is you take this idea and it should be indicated with a set of codes, with a different set of codes to categorize the description as part of addressing the research question. So you categorize it, you term it under different things. Okay, like for example, if you're having, there are so many people who talk about, life goals or life fulfillment. You turn them under life goals. Okay, so all those answers will come under that. So you differentiate or you categorize your data into different sets of groups. Once you data code, you recode or assign the codes to the data. Okay, so the responses provided by participants will be tagged with codes. Okay, so whatever responses you get from your from your sample, what will you do is you will tag it with codes. In other words, it is recoding to the already coded description with specific tags to observe the repeated recurrence of tags. Now once you recode the tag, okay, once you recode the tag, you interpret what you interpret or interpret the recurring themes. Okay, what do? You interpret them. So what do you do after identifying the recurring themes? The researchers, what I mean, as scholars, you have to interpret the phenomena for a specific point of view. Like, what is that specific thing that you need to have as your center of research that relates your topic of research? Okay, so this perspective of understanding facilitates an understanding of reality from scientific postulates and methodological order. So there are different approaches for evaluating qualitative data. Despite the fact that these methods employ similar procedures, they focus on distinct topics. Okay, they all have distinct topics. And the following illustrations may offer an example. So what are the following illustrations? The analysis is a distinct method of data collecting that varies from all qualitative research methods, in that researchers examine the social lives of the respondents living in the study by decoding words, behavior, actions, and so forth. So you decode them to either words, behavior, actions, perceivements, environment, natural setting. So you keep decoding it. Okay. The images used in qualitative research studies will be systematically categorized for the analysis of distinctive features found in the photographs. Thereby, the inferences drawn could be drawn clearly. The text analysis is all about what is expressed about the respondents in the field, or what is captured in the field. Okay, so this is what will go into your field demographics. Now let us talk about what are the advantages of qualitative research. Okay, so why do you think qualitative research is important, or what can you think about the advantages of qualitative research? Any one of you can talk about why do you think qualitative research has its advantages? No one? Okay. So qualitative research frequently attempts to maintain the voice and perspective of participants. Okay. So you are always included. You are always involved with your participants. Okay. And it may be revised as a new research topic that should evolve further. Okay. So it helps you to keep increasing on your research. There is always a development in a topic, right? And you always have topics to research for further and evolve further. So qualitative research is useful for few of the points. They are flexibility, natural settings, meaningful insights, and generation of new ideas. So why do we think flexibility? So the strategy for gathering and analyzing data, you can go when you want to. You don't have a fixed time. You are flexible to work. Okay, you are flexible to get data. They are not predetermined ahead of time. Therefore, the qualitative approach has more flexibility to carry out your research. You do not have a fixed time, right? Maybe you might have a fixed time to finish your research, but you don't have an estimated time to, you are flexible to go and get your data. Okay. Then natural settings. Then in natural settings, regardless of the methods, okay, the qualitative researchers look at things just as they are. They are not biased. Okay, the way it appears, the researchers look at it and perceive it the same way. They do not manipulate the way they think. Okay, they do not tamper with the environment in any way. If they do that, the data they have collected becomes invalid. So researchers accept what they see the way it is. Okay. Then you have meaningful insights. Detailed descriptions of respondents' experiences, feelings, and perceptions can be utilized to build, test, or improve concepts and interpretations. So there is much more to it when you do qualitative. So you have that deep connect with what you are, with the topic you are doing, and the data that you have received from the respondents. Okay, you understand their feelings, you understand their experiences, you understand the way they perceive it, you try to build on it, you test it and improve the concepts and interpretations. Okay, so there is a lot of meaningful insight. And last comes the generation of new ideas. So researchers keep discovering new premises, unexpected challenges, possibilities as a result of open-ended responses given by the respondents. Okay, so there is always a scope of generation of new ideas, because as a researcher, you need to keep asking yourself why this, why people are talking like this, why have they perceived like this. So that will help you to understand and generate new ideas. But if we have advantages, there should also be a set of disadvantages. Okay, so there are a few disadvantages also of qualitative research. Okay, because while evaluating and interpreting the data, researchers must consider both practical and theoretical constraints. That makes your research more valid. If you're only based on qualitative, or if you're only based on quantitative, your research still doesn't strike a balance. But if you have both quantitative and qualitative data, you are striking a balance, and the efficacy of your research is more prominent. Okay, so what the few disadvantages are: it is unreliable, it is subjectivity, limited generalization, and labor intensive. Okay, so in unreliability, the uncontrolled circumstances and in interventions of a phenomena that exists in a natural setting may change or become volatile quickly. So if you are going to a natural setting and trying to get the data, the circumstance might change, or it can become diluted very quickly. So your data is not being that effective the way it is when you took it. So there is a lot of change that happens. So it is not consistent. This causes the result to change. Because of that volatility, this affects your data. Okay, and qualitative research hence becomes inaccurate, or it is very difficult to be reliable. So that is the difference that you see when you always do a qualitative study. There is always a unreliable there is always an improvement, because things keep changing. Okay, now when we come to subjectivity, due to the very primary role of a researcher in analyzing and interpreting data, qualitative research cannot be replicated, as the researcher may show his discernment in determining what is important and what is relevant in data analysis. So interpretation of the same data can be greatly owing to the subjectivity of the researcher. As I already told you, that because we do not use numbers, because we do not have statistical evidence, it always becomes void sometimes. Okay, so interpretation of the same data can vary greatly. There can be a difference of variations, right? Now we talk about the limited generalization. Since qualitative research is essential to address researchers' questions in order to transform them into hypotheses. So generalization is not possible with these sorts of studies. If even small samples are sometimes employed to create extensive information on certain phenomena, drawing generalizable findings is challenging, as the data may be biased. So you cannot draw generalizations based on qualitative study, because you can be biased at some point of time, right? Now we talk about the labor intensive. Okay, so all the qualitative researchers now use various software to organize and record enormous quantities of text. A large volume of data analysis is frequently verified or completely manual. Therefore, it consumes more time and more labor and requires more funds to execute, because qualitative data is never is never the same. It keeps changing. It has to keep changing, right? So there is a lot of funds or a lot of people that need to be hired so that we change it. Okay, so with this we complete your first unit, children, students. So what I would be trying to do is I would give you a few important questions. Okay, the few important questions that you could get is, what do you mean by qualitative research? Explain its nature and its importance. Okay, then we can talk about elaboration on different approaches available in qualitative research. Then talk about the various stages to be followed for analysis of qualitative data. Then highlight merits and demerits of qualitative research with suitable examples. Okay, these are your model questions that you can expect from here. And then you can talk about the purpose of qualitative research, important definitions of qualitative research. What are the approaches of qualitative research, steps that are used in qualitative research, and the advantages and disadvantages of qualitative research. Okay, so with this, we complete your unit 1. And from the next class, we will start your unit 2. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll sign off for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We are suffering with a cold, I think.
Yeah, I have cold. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.